Hey there, lovely people. Welcome back to another Story Study Saturday. I'm Sammy, and I like to look at stories to see what we can learn from them as writers. This week, I am so freaking excited because I wrote a Goodreads review for a book because I was a big fan of the author, and she asked me to be an ARC reader. ARC is advanced release copy, so I got to read her book before it's actually out. And it actually comes out November 1st, which is Monday. So you can pre-order it down below, and then once Monday hits, I will put in links for the physical copy. I am so excited to talk to you today about Abbie Emmons, Tessa and Weston, The Best Christmas Ever. It's a sequel, guys. It's a sequel. Now, I promised I wouldn't give out any spoilers, so I won't be giving out any spoilers. So I have to say, for one, cozy Christmas story. I am wearing the sweater for you. I'm still in Texas. It's still very hot, but I'm wearing the Christmas sweater. I wear this almost every Christmas, around Christmas time, always. But it's as warm as a winter coat, and I have my air conditioning turned off. This book is a lot better, I think, than the first book. Maybe same tier, but still, like, marginally better. I am so happy I got to read it. I'm so happy I got to read it early, and I think all of you should read it. If you've read 100 Days of Sunlight, you should absolutely read this one. It's amazing to see the characters develop in the way that they have. I think that the conflict in this one is a lot more interesting to me than the first one, because the first one has this big deal, major drama, a huge issue for the conflict. And this one is more subtle, and it's a lot more realistic, more like something that many people can probably relate to. And it's interpersonal conflict where it's an issue between Tessa and her mom. And that's the conflict for the whole book. And it's really, really interesting to see how her characters interact with that conflict, how they solve the conflict, and how the conflict between Tessa and her mom creates conflict between Tessa and Weston. The internal struggles that she's able to develop because of this conflict, and how we're able to see inside of both Tessa and Weston in their minds and see how they are looking at this relationship and how they perceive the relationship to be going, and all of that interaction between their mental perception of the relationship and then the other's mental perception of the relationship, and how those things just butt heads, and how they maneuver around their perceptions and how they solve the problem. And it's awesome. It's just such a subtle conflict that all of the internal conflict is so much more powerful than I feel like it was in 100 Days of Sunlight, because there is not as much exterior pressing on them. There's not as much strife that they're going through, that they're able to have these internal struggles and have them be very, very powerful. I think the character voices are a lot better in this one as well. They're a lot more defined. You know when it's Tessa and you know when it's Weston, and you see the impact that Tessa has on Weston, and she corrects him in his speaking grammar a couple of times, which I think it's adorable. I love that. And it's so sweet to see that difference where they're really interacting with that, and their voices are really distinguished while also still mimicking each other in minor ways, because they're together so often and they're clearly in love, and I'm so happy for them. They are absolutely adorable, and I could read a Tessa and Weston book for the rest of their lives. I want to know everything that happens to them. I'm ready for it. Like, it's all really great. And I even think that some of the character development that I didn't really like from the last book, we don't interact with the grandfather. I don't know if we ever interact with the grandfather, if he's just there in concept. But so I didn't get to interact with his character development, but the friend, Weston's friend, whose name I now know is Rudy, he is a lot more realistic to me this time. We interact with him a lot less, but he feels like he's a real person, and his purpose is not to be there for Weston. His purpose is to be doing what he's doing, and Weston happens to be around. And I love that that's a development, because he's so much more interesting now that he's not just there to help Weston. And while he does help Weston, it's so much more interesting because he's got his own life to live. And I love that now because it's so different. So what do I think that we can all learn from this book? Abbie Emmons is a great writer, and you should go watch her videos as well as mine. Please don't leave me for her. That's something we can learn. We can also learn that it never hurts to revisit your characters or your world or your story. It's something that a lot of authors do, that they'll write a book, they'll write a trilogy, or they'll write a couple of books, and then they won't expect to really interact with those characters again. But then they do, and it comes out with something really beautiful. It never hurts to test that out. Sometimes it doesn't go as well as others. Everybody knows that one book that was added to a series that you didn't really need, but other times it can be so rewarding. And I think this was one of those times that while 100 Days of Sunlight wraps up really neatly in a nice little bow, I also fell in love with the characters, and I am happy to see them live their lives and be happy and be in love with each other. It depends on the type of revisitation, but most of the time, if you have a loved character, if you have a loved world, you have a loved system in place in your fictional story that your readers really enjoy, no one's usually mad that you revisited it. That's why people read fan fiction. It's because they want more content. No one's gonna be mad at you for making more content, especially if it's canon. Come on. This could also relate to past projects. Anything that you have as a work in progress, if you left it alone because you didn't really like it, or if anything like that happened that made you abandon it, you had a plot hole you couldn't figure out, something like that. It doesn't hurt to revisit the world, to revisit the characters, and see if putting them in another situation might make it a little bit easier on you. This book can also teach us that you don't always need some huge dramatic conflict to make your story engaging. Your story can be just as engaging if it's following one character through some familial strife as it is following a character through a major trauma. You don't need to have something huge. Your characters don't need to go to war. Your characters don't need to lose a limb to have a engaging story. If you have enough depth to your characters, anything that you can put them through should be engaging, because that's how real people interact with the world. Most of us don't go to war, and some of us find it interesting when they send teenagers to war or 20-something-year-olds to war in these mystical worlds. But some of us just want to know how to solve our problems. And putting your characters through situations that might solve problems can be just as engaging as a major battle, depending on the reader. I would love to say more on this, but I'm honestly just hoping that everybody will go out and read the book. I'm just gonna drop the pre-order link down below, and then once it's out, I will drop the regular links so you can go out and buy it and read it and enjoy it. It's gonna be such a great time. I am so genuinely happy that she released this book. I'm even more honored that she allowed me to be a part of her ARC Readers team. Even though I know that she didn't watch my video before writing this book, it's really amazing to see that the things that I had critiques on have been solved in the second book. And I think that just shows growth as a writer, and that just doing it makes it easier to just do. Once you've done it, you can't do worse. The more you write, the better you're gonna get. And the more that you learn from your writing, the better that your writing will be. I think that's super, super great. That's all I've got to say, because I don't want to give away any spoilers on Tessa and Weston, the best Christmas ever. But the cover is just as good as the 100 Days of Sunlight. I will see you on Tuesday for a Writing Tip Tuesday, and then I will see you again on Saturday for another Story Study Saturday. I am so happy to have read this book, and I hope you will be just as happy once you read it as well. If you like this video, please leave a like. It'll really help me out. And if you want to see more videos from me, make sure you press the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you get notifications every time I post.